Hi everyone, this is Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at the initial setup for the Gaggia Accademia. So if you're lucky enough to have one of these machines on your countertop, I'll be walking you through the different steps that you'll need to perform in order to get the machine ready to brew for you. So not only will this cover the basic setup, but I'll also be getting into some of the programmability so we can customize the user experience to truly tailor the machine to your needs. And of course, my favorite is going to be activating a Mavia Intenza water filter. So not only will this get our correct water hardness programmed in the machine for the descaling cycle, but we'll have that filter installed to protect your machine from scale buildup. Now, with all that said, let's get started and take a look at the accessories that come with the Gaggia Accademia. Let's take a look at the accessories that come with the Gaggia Accademia. Now, there are quite a few different items here, and we'll take a look at each one. So real quickly from left to right, we start with the Mavia Intenza water filter. Now, this will help protect the flavor of your espresso by removing flavor contaminants like chlorine from your water, but it also will help prevent limescale from building up on the inside of your machine. Now, next to that, we do have a bottle of Gaggia decalcifier. So this filter is not going to fully prevent any minerals from building up, and the decalcifier is what you use to break those down inside the machine once you're being prompted to descale. So next to that is a package of Gaggia's Coffee Clean tablets. These break down built-up oils on the insides of your brew group and spouts from the coffee system to make sure that what you brew tastes fresh because there aren't stale oils in the line. Now, in front of our suite here we have the water hardness test strip, which is used to program the water hardness, which is used in conjunction with both our Intenza filter and then ultimately the decalcifier. We have a tube of Gaggia's brew group lubricant, which is a food-safe grease that you apply to the brew group on the inside of your machine, and then that allows the mechanisms in there to slide without friction, preserving the life of your group. So we also have a small brush which can be used to brush areas like the bypass chute on the machine, or if you have any coffee that has collected on the group or on the inside, that's a great brush for that. And then finally we have our scoop, which is ultimately used for the bypass doser. So this is a measured scoop on the top here, and then one level scoop is equal to a maximum dose for the Accademia's brew unit. But that covers our accessories. To start off our espresso journey with the Gaggia Accademia, it starts with this nice plug. So simply go ahead and secure the plug into the socket in the back of the machine. Now, the Accademia is one of several Gaggia machines that does have a two-position power switch in the back of the machine that you need to flip to the on position before the power button works in the front. So we'll simply go ahead and switch this on, and we will now be able to activate the Accademia using the power button in the front of the machine. With our power light now flashing, we can go ahead and wake up the Accademia. So we are being prompted to refill the water tank. Now, if you are unboxing your machine for the very first time, you'll simply want to open up this door here on the left. That's how we get to the water reservoir. So you can take the lid cover off and simply remove the reservoir from the machine. If this is the very first time you're using it, you simply want to make sure that you are going to thoroughly rinse the reservoir before adding any water to it for brewing. Now, note whenever you are returning the reservoir to the machine, there is an area of it in the back that has more depth than in the front, and that's also going to be nicely indicated by the little yellow tab that comes out when the reservoir is removed. So we'll simply put that back in. And as you can see, we're being alerted that the water circuit was priming. So that simply means that the machine is drawing water in through the pump so that it can start pumping water. If you have a brand new machine, there's nothing but air in that pump, so the machine will need to prime before it can do anything else. With our water reservoir filled with water and the machine primed, it's also important that we take a look at the menus that you'll be seeing during your initial setup. Now, these are menus that will determine just some basic operations, say for instance the language of the text on the screen, but they can also be changed as well. Now, if you ever want to access the machine's menu settings, these two buttons here, the center left and center right, give you access to the general settings and the drink settings. So for this instance, we'll go ahead and we'll select the general settings. Now you can see that the suite of 4 buttons has changed to an escape, an OK, and an up and down arrow. Now, for the language, which is something that you'll see, that's under display settings. So our default here is going to be English. Now you can also select different languages during the initial setup of your machine simply by scrolling through. You've got your flag icon as well. So if you're in America like I am right now, you'll just need to be comfortable with seeing the Union Jack there. But we'll go ahead and say that we want our language to be English. Now, we can also, in this display settings menu, change the brightness. So I would just say adjust to whatever is the most comfortable for your eyes to look at as far as the display goes, and leave it there. Now we'll go ahead and click escape. The calendar settings are going to be important because initially we're just going to be given some very basic stuff to enter here, like the time and the date. But inside this same menu, we get some other things too, like for instance, the standby settings. So what is standby? Well, between 15 and 180 minutes or 3 hours, you can set the machine to have it power off after a period of inactivity, which will help to conserve energy and lower your total energy consumption. Go ahead and click escape there. Now the power on timer is something that needs to be used in conjunction with your actual date and time. And what that does is that lets you set 3 timers for the machine, and then you can set it to a specific hour, specific minutes, and then also the day of the week. So that's how you can go ahead and program the Accademia to turn on and off, for instance, on certain days and at certain times. But the other thing that we'll want to take a look at, and we'll be going into my little lab setup in just a moment, will be our water settings. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. This is where we'll be able to program our water hardness using the included test strip, as well as activating the included Mavia Intenza water filter. So with some basic menu knowledge under our belt, let's go ahead and take a look at activating a filter. Activating the included Mavia Intenza water filter with your machine is a fairly straightforward process, but we're going to go ahead and actually accomplish 2 things at once. Now, the included water hardness test strip that comes with the Accademia has 4 green squares on it, and then based on the color that those squares change, we'll be able to set not only the water hardness in the machine, but also the physical setting on our filter. And I'll show you that in just a moment. So the first thing you want to do though is simply go ahead and remove the strip from its packaging. Now go ahead and dunk that in so that all 4 squares are soaked with water. You really only need about 1 second, and we'll give that a shake. So it's going to take just a moment for those squares to change color. So I'm going to set that off to the side. Now, with our filter, if you give it a shake, you can hear that there's some layers of filtration in there. There's dry sediments, things like carbon, etc. So what we can do is simply go ahead and submerge this filter in some water. And now by giving it a couple of squeezes, you can see some air bubbles coming out. We're simply drawing some water into this filter cartridge. And what that's going to do is when we actually insert this into the machine and we activate it, the Accademia is going to need to be able to draw water through this filter. And so drawing water through a activated hydrated filter is going to be much easier, say, than if it had no water in there at all. And so actually our strip's been fairly fast acting. So there's actually 2 orange squares on this strip. That means that we have what Gaggia would consider to be light water. Now the results obviously are 1 to 2 is light, we have 3 which is medium, and then 4 which is hard water. So how does that correspond with our actual filter here? So we have settings A, B, and C, and so we'll default actually to B if you just take this out of the box. Now there are 2 little grips right on the sides here. Simply pinch that with our thumb and index finger, and we'll turn until this little arrow, I'm not sure if you can perfectly see that, is aligned with A now, which is our setting. So with that out of the way, we can actually go ahead now, get that water hardness set in the machine, and then we'll remove the reservoir to insert and then activate the Mavia. With our water filter now ready to be installed, we'll return to the Academia's settings menu. So we'll hit that gear again and we'll navigate down to our water settings. So under water settings, we have several options: water hardness, enable filter, and activate filter. Now that we know the results of our water hardness test, we can simply go ahead and switch our water hardness to 2 and click OK. That tells the machine how hard the water is, so that based on the number of drinks you brew, it knows how frequently to alert you to descale the machine. Now we'll scroll down to activate, or enable filter rather, and we'll switch that from off to on. Now our last step here is to actually activate the filter. So we'll go down there and we'll hit OK. And for our prompt, it says, do you want to activate the filter? Click OK again. Now we have a quick water circuit priming, and we're being asked to insert the filter into the tank and fill it. Now we'll go ahead and remove the water tank and do that right now. I've got this about maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of the way full. We'll simply want to go ahead and place that in there, and you can see through the transparency in the tank, we can see just how far down into the socket we actually need to put the filter. So we'll go ahead though now too and add water. So having a carafe of water handy will help with this process, because the last step is going to be the actual priming. So the machine's going to draw a lot more water through this filter again, and for that I do have a nice pitcher handy, which is going to be used to collect water that's going to be dispensed from the hot water arm. So we'll simply lift the reservoir back up and get that set back in the machine. So saying, all right, put that back in, which we did. So we can go ahead and click OK. Place the container under the hot water spout, and I've got this off to the side. This is a fairly tall container, but the stream of water is going to land right in here. We'll go ahead and click OK. And now basically the machine is simply going to pull enough water through the filter to safely activate it. And at that point, all you'll need to do is refill your reservoir and your Academia is ready to brew. With our water filter now activated, let's navigate the remainder of the Academia's settings menu. So general settings, which is our first option here, we can take a look. That powers on or off the cup warmer on the top, so you can fit a handful of espresso or cappuccino cups up there. This simply activates the heating element. So if you have the machine ready to turn on, say, several hours before you wake up, this can keep your cups nice and toasty, waiting for you when you get downstairs for your first cup of coffee. Now, the eco mode function, this simply allows you to have the machine set to eco mode, which will generally just save you a little bit of power. And then finally, the acoustic tone. So if you don't like the sound of these buttons, you can simply shut them off. And as you can see, it's now fairly silent. But this is a video. It's a pretty cool little review we're doing here. So I'm going to leave my button tones on. It makes me feel like I'm doing just a little bit more work for you. So we've already taken a look at the display settings. If we go to the calendar settings, again, we can set our time, our date, our standby, and our power on timer. Now, the time, the one commentary I have on this is that it does not have the only time that really matters, which is time for coffee. We simply have hours and minutes. And so if you are in the United States like I am, we can go ahead and switch down from 24-hour to AM, PM, and that way you'll be used to seeing what you're seeing on the screen there. Now we'll go back, and we'll actually take a look at our power on timer. So we have 3 timers here, right? And we can go on and simply enter this, and we can say, what is the hour of the day that we want? What is the time? So say if it's like 6:30, for example, and minutes, and then what is the day of the week? So hour, let's say we want to set it to 5 a.m. and then we want that on Monday. So you also can see here that we have every day of the week present. So this is the first of our 3 power on times, right? So that means that we could say, okay, 5 a.m. definitely on a Monday. That's like, I'm not even gonna function before then. But let's say Tuesday, a little slower, maybe we don't need the machine on until 6, so we can simply skip through that. Let's say you have a rough Thursday. We'll go ahead and say, yeah, we want Thursdays as well. And then Saturday, Sunday, Friday, we don't need that. So now we have 5 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays, the machine will power on. And then you can go ahead and customize those same power on times for the other 2 times that you have. So the Academia really lets you tailor its availability to you based on when you need it, which is great. So that's the calendar settings. We've of course looked at water settings. And now let's take a quick peek at maintenance. So we've got product counters. Now this is for bragging rights, and you can actually go through and take a look at all of the different drinks that you've made and how many of them. The descaling cycle, this is letting us know how close we're getting to it, but also when we want to start it. So we've got the little number there, 223, and then we also know that we have our filter activated. Our brew group cleaning cycle, that lets us use a cleaning tablet to clean the brew group. The carafe wash cycle, which lets us do a clean of the milk carafe. And then the carafe auto clean, which is a feature that will automatically clean the carafe after you're done making a drink with it. So I would always recommend you leave that on. Then we go into factory settings, and this is your option if you want to restore the Academia to its defaults. But once you've kind of tailored all of those to your liking, the machine's really ready for you to just start brewing with, and then you don't have to think about that ever again. So I would definitely recommend that you play a bit in this menu, take a look at some things, definitely that display contrast, those on and off times. Ooh, and if you don't want the buttons beeping at you, for example, get all that set, and then there's nothing between you and your espresso. For our final step of setup, let's go ahead and take a look at the bean hopper. Now, that's covered by the door here, and you can also see there is a nice lid here with an aroma seal gasket. That has a couple of markings that indicate both not to, say, put water in here, for instance, or ground coffee, but also our grind setting. Now, when you first get your machine out of the box, you'll want to make sure that your grind setting is set fairly fine for the espresso that you're brewing. Now, because the Academia does have 8 settings, I would say that you could probably get away with setting 2 or 1. We recommend, generally speaking, that you go with a finer setting for your first couple of shots to really see if you like the intensity of the espresso. Now, to adjust this, you'll simply press and turn, sort of like you were taking the top off of a bottle of vitamins. Now, the important thing is that you want to make sure that you make your adjustments before adding beans to the grinder. Once there is coffee inside the grinder, you can only make a single adjustment at a time before you would like to, say, brew a shot in between to get that coffee ground out so that you can move the burrs safely. But again, if you're doing this from the start, you can simply set it and then have that be where you have it. Now, we'll remove the lid here, and you can see just on the inside of our bean hopper here, there's the auger all the way down at the bottom, which is where your beans get pulled down into the burrs. Now, when you're actually filling this up with coffee and you're ready to brew, you want to make sure that you get something that's a nice medium roast that's free of extensive surface oils. To put it, shortly, basically, coffee with lots of oil on it gums up everything. It makes it hard for beans to feed down into the grinder. It can gum up the grinder itself and your brew unit. So you don't want anything that's really extra dark, like a French roast or a extra dark roast. Get something that's a espresso roast or espresso blend, and then make sure that there's not really a shiny surface gloss to those beans. And other than that, you can put your lid back on, and now you're ready to brew.